I am a Chicago girl, through and through. My family's roots are not far from here in the community of Bronzeville. They lived initially on 35th Street and 58th Street. I, however, spent my earliest years in the family home at 6418 South Ingleside. And then we moved to South Shore, where I spent the rest of my years up until I went to college. As a South Side girl, I've had a long career. I started as a media practitioner, trailblazing a path so that others could follow me. I then went on to become the global CEO of a media agency. And now, as I like to call it, I'm a business strategist who practices at the intersection of people and organizations. I also consider myself a product of the Brown v. Board of Education decision. I was born just a couple years later. And that ruling imprinted on me what my future was going to be. So the expectations were that we would study hard, get a good education. At that time, my cohort was supposed to go into the world and become members of the professional or public sector, moving past what our parents thought was possible as people who had worked for the government or school teachers or very honorable professions. And I did that. And I've had great success. In fact, success beyond what I thought was possible, even though, as you can imagine, there were terrific challenges and frequent headwinds. But there was another expectation that came with my Brown versus Board of Education imprint, and that is that I would spend my time not only building my success, but the success of others. That my job was to make a path so that others could follow me as well. And I've tried to do that. Sometimes I've missed the mark, but I think overall I've made a real difference as I've moved through my career. Now, I went to school with every intention of becoming a lawyer, but that did not happen. Instead, I found myself in the world of advertising, a place where commerce gets driven globally, a place where people and ideas connect every second of the day, a place where the messages and the work to shape culture, and in a product where people want to see themselves and their lives. Now, in some ways, being a lawyer and being in advertising are quite different. One profession is quite adversarial, or can be adversarial. The other one is highly collaborative. One takes full advantage of creative license. The other one roots itself in precedents and history. But in some ways, they are exactly the same. They both pivot on the art of persuasion, the arguments we make to convince one another to do different things. They also change over time to capture what is relevant for the people in the communities that they're operating in. But there's one other thing I got from being in the world of advertising, and it's a powerful force. In fact, it's a force that in my mind shaped a vibrant Bronzeville in the 1930s and 40s, where even a Louis Armstrong came to refine his music. But it's also the force that made it possible for me as an African American woman to become a global CEO. And that force is imagination. Now hold on a minute. I know imagination sometimes gets a bad rap, even back to the time of Plato. Usually imagination is put in the category of flights of fantasy, make-believe, things that don't exist. And when it's at its worst, imagination can conjure up worry and obsession. But I want to present the better side of imagination, and that is imagination, some people believe, preceded language. That what you saw on the walls of those caves, those drawings, were part of people's imagination. It springs from our minds. It is the power to bring up possibilities that don't yet exist. And in the world where I've spent my career, I think it's quite interesting that creativity is simply imagination applied. So as I think about the future, and I think about even what was imprinted on me in my past, I know that my work is not done, because I know that there are still ways for me to contribute and make a way for people, and that it relies on me using parts of my imagination as well as every experience I've had to date. So when I think about the future of work, for instance, I'm thinking about the fact that we are migrating from the fourth industrial revolution, which is about data, analytics, technology, artificial intelligence, into the fifth industrial revolution, which is about purpose and humanity and society. I think about that statistic from the World Economic Forum that says 65% of children who are in grammar school today will work in jobs that don't even exist right now. When I think about the future of work, I see an increased emphasis on knowledge industries, the places where knowledge is created, where humans bring their ideas together in collaboration to create something new. If you think about the businesses that have emerged in the last 20 years, I think you can see that they were based on people's imagination and knowledge. I also do believe that there is room for what is called the creative class. Now, I know that there is great controversy around Richard Florida's work, primarily how it's been applied in the world. But I'm here to say there really is a creative class. They really do drive an economy, and I know because I'm a member of it. And what TechCrunch says is that this creative class is going to be critical for powering our economy. So what happens in our future? And not only is it the job stability that they're talking about, but it's that ability to future-proof where we end up, and it's also about upward mobility still. Now, Brookings wrote an article that's titled, Minorities Will Be the Majority in 2045. And I think a lot of us know this. But I think what's important for us to capture is that it's not going to happen in 25 years, but it's going to happen every day for the next 25 years. We will become increasingly a different demographic in terms of our country. And for people like me who work in the world of advertising, that means the people we are trying to connect with on behalf of our clients, that those consumers are changing, especially the young ones and the most coveted demographics. And the impact will be far-reaching on our tax base, on our voting rolls, on the economy, on everything that shapes our world. So as I think about the future for people, certainly those inside of organizations, I think about the migration from employees to talent to people to humans, and how work, the meaning of it, is going to change for all of us, and how it's going to be incumbent on us to take views, us as employers, to take a view of people as assets who come to work with their own assets. In some ways that we're in co-creation with those people that come into our buildings every day. But as you can imagine, I spend time thinking about what I call our future. I spend time thinking about the future of people on the South Side, people who come from the same place as I do. I think about those creators. I think about those makers. You've heard some of them on stage this morning. They are the new storytellers, and they are going to tell the story of African Americans in our full potential, in our full possibilities. And for me, my contribution to that future is to figure out how to get them connected to worlds that don't connect to them today, to figure out how to help capitalize and monetize the ideas that come from that world, to figure out how to make a connection between the places I've been able to go and benefit from and the places that they need access to, but also the places that need access to them because of their ideas and their creativity. So I am on a team of people back at work who are trying to figure out how we build those connections. What we're working towards is building a connection from our building on 35 West Wacker to a storied legacy institution on the South Side, where we can build a bridge between our creators and creators in that world, where we can give them access to our space, where we can create internships and apprenticeships and co-working relationships that benefit them, where we can build networks of connections for them that give them opportunities that they don't have, where we can recruit in partners, not just ourselves, but other people who are willing to go on this journey to figure out how the world of creators and makers and the creative class and the knowledge people can all combine to create the better world that we need to have. And actually, it's my hope that through this connection, we will be able to help the creators and makers on the South Side figure out how they can come together in their own collective power, maybe even building their own platform capability where they can work virtually, serve others virtually, and do it, importantly, at a scale that's not imagined today. So I sort of think all of us have just two choices, not many, just two. One of those choices is to embrace the status quo, to embrace that trend line that is bending towards further inequality, wealth loss, and lack of opportunity. So that's one choice. The other choice is to figure out how collectively we can bend the opportunities towards equality, towards access, towards sponsorship, that we can create another era so that if the 40s and 50s before me were about equality through government jobs, and my generation was about equality through privately held companies and professional sector jobs, that we can now help others capitalize on the upward mobility that comes from their creativity and the power of their ideas. I certainly know where my choice is, and it's on the ladder. If you haven't made up your mind, I hope my comments today will encourage you to pick a side, and I'd prefer that you pick mine. If you've already chosen, I hope that I will see you on that path. Thank you very much.